our voices and sing together. Hear my heart, hear my heart, hear my heart, speak what is true. Here's my life. So let's all begin our time together with a nice deep breath, breathing in and exhaling. Put your hand on your heart. Feel your heartbeat. Tonight we give thanks for this opportunity to be together, to be on this path together, on this sacred journey of learning deeply of what is true of our reason for being, to rise higher, pray harder, forgive steadily, love readily under all circumstances, that under all challenges, under all the difficulties and all the joys, all the ups and the downs of life, we continue to do our best
make or break moments, especially if
handle those
it
make or break moments.
Osteoporosis and a high risk for fracture. It's time to make your move to help.
All right, that's this technical issue. We go through this every week. So you can go back to what you usually do and pause it in the next piece. So we're praying. Let us pray. As we go through our days, we know that there have been so many challenges in our personal lives and in the world. And A Course in Miracles reminds us that we have to continuously rise above the battlefield to look down into this earth of illusions, of highs and lows, and continuously ask to be of service, continuously ask to keep our minds free of hardness, our hearts free of hardness, our minds continually open and receptive to the guidance of Spirit to tell us what to do, who to speak to, what to say, when and where, so that we speak words of kindness, that we speak words of healing, that we continue to move on this path as people who are willing to step into the light, to receive the light so that we can extend the light out, that we move beyond words, that we move beyond fear, that we move beyond judgments, and then we stand in the integrity of this lesson and these lessons and this teaching. We pray to continuously see the light in one another, to see the light in ourselves, to see the light in our brothers and sisters, to remember that our brothers and sisters are reflections of our very own being, that we cannot move higher without them. We cannot move further without the forgiveness that we need to extend to ourselves and to each other and to our brothers and sisters. And so tonight we stand strong in the conviction of this promise to ourselves that we've made, to live A Course in Miracles, not just to read, not just to talk, but to continuously rise up to the challenge of being good stewards of these teachings. And for that and for so much more, we give thanks. We give thanks. Amen. Om Shanti. Hey, everybody. Let's see how we're doing here. We good? Not sure. All right, we'll find out when we get to the end of the night. But anyway, hello. Happy Thursday. It's a sacred day. Our time together. Happy Holy Thursday. This is, for those of us who are here today, the family that has been together for many years. We're having a little bit of a hard time today. It's our first time being together in this Miracles with a Twist environment without our beloved Pam. Pam died exactly 2 weeks ago today. And So we have been mourning together, we have been joining in the best ways we could, but this is our first time actually coming back into the live stream and doing Miracles with a Twist. And you know, there's some hesitation because there's been a lot of question. For those of you who who don't know who Pam is, she was with me on this journey of Course in Miracles for 10 years. We've been friends for 14 years, but specifically following A Course in Miracles for 10 years, and you know, had dinner before class for 10 years. I mean, we've been very close. We've all been very close together on this journey. And 2 weeks ago, she died what we would all consider a violent death in the worldly sense of looking at things. She was attacked by a dog and killed. And we try to find meaning in the lessons. And I wanted to say that when it came to finding meaning or comfort these past few weeks, it wasn't about looking in a book. It wasn't about looking in teachings. It was about finding out how much the teachings had lived in me. How much of the teachings still living in me? How much is it actually become a part of my life to have a spiritual community? To have people who know that this is not about engaging in hostility. There's been a lot of hostility of people coming together, arguing about one thing or another. This is not that time. We rise above that. We try to find peace. We try to extend peace, give peace to one another, find peace with each other. And so we have spent the last few years making this promise that we will live our lessons, we will live our spiritual lessons, that having spiritual experiences is not about having an altered state for a moment to be able to say the right things and to appear as if we know what we're doing, but to actually work toward being the person we say we want to be, the people we say we want to be. And we know that that's what Pam was working on. We know that is what Pam has risen to. She had risen to be a person who truly lived A Course in Miracles, a giver of her heart, a person who was continuously loving and kind and compassionate. And so what we do now is we step into those shoes, that light, that way of being, so that we can be more like Pam. What would Pam do in any given situation? She would be kind, she would be caring, she would be compassionate. And so we come back together for the first time since she passed, knowing that we have not faltered in our dedication. Doesn't mean we don't mourn. We've been horrified, we've been hurt, we've been sad, we've cried together. We don't stop missing her or mourning her. But it is an opportunity for us to rise higher and to continue living our teachings and to continue being on this path of dedication to a spiritual way of life and to really find out what we're made of. We find out what we're made of during times of crisis. And so here we are. We start every week with the sounding of the bell, a bell that goes around and it blesses every person who's here in person. And Pam always sat next to Ernesto, my dog. He has a little bed and Pam would sit next to it. And then about a week before she died, I was walking down and I had a neighbor who was having a yard sale and had that big candlestick with a big candle. And I generally don't buy like just stuff around the house. You know, my house is pretty basic, not a lot of stuff. So I said, I like that though. I wanted to bring it home. And that's the only place I could think to put it, but I thought that's Pam's seat. So when on Thursday, I'm gonna have to move it to the other side of the wall. But now it is Pam's seat and it represents, the light of that candle represents Pam. So every week we will light that candle in her honor and we will do the sounding of the bell at the candle. So she will always be with us. Her presence will always be here and here. So the other thing that's happening, as we all know, is the crisis in the Ukraine. And that's another thing, you know, people have been asking me about. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see the solidarity of the world come together. And so I was looking for something that I could share with you. And I came across this piece that Marianne Williamson put out today. And it's kind of long, so I'm just going to read one paragraph. She says, there is a term called local discontinuity of progress, a sociological principle that means you never know where the next movement forward is going to come from. No one would have guessed that unlimited bravery on the part of Ukrainians would become such a flashpoint in human history. In the midst of darkness, Ukrainians are casting an extraordinary light that nothing Putin could ever do will be able to extinguish. We pray that the forces are nullified. The forces of evil, she uses the word evil, are nullified, its operational systems hijacked, and for legions of angels to sweep down upon a war-torn land. So let us all pray with her and with each other for that to be so. So, some heavy stuff happening, right? It's just heavy. And so it's great to have spiritual community. It's great to have a spiritual path. It's great to have lessons and texts and things that we can fall back on and read and absorb so that it becomes a part of who we are. So, back to my promise to do the manual for teachers. This is where we started earlier this month, or last month. Was it last month? I think we were March 3rd. We're only on March 3rd. So it was last month we started manual for teachers. And we're up to question number 4. And question number 4 asks the question, what are the characteristics of God's teachers? The surface traits of God's teachers are not at all alike. They do not look alike to the body's eyes. They come from vastly different backgrounds. Their experiences of the world vary greatly, and their superficial personalities are quite distinct. So just like any kind of teacher, we got teachers all over the world. We all do different things, come from different places. And so it's saying it's not that you have to look a certain way or come from a certain background. It's like whoever is making the decision to be representation of these teachings. And so the first characteristic, it says, is trust. Trust. Now trust comes up in A Course in Miracles a lot. It's not just now. We're not seeing it for the first time. We saw it in chapter 26. It had just one line. It said, trust would settle every problem now. Imagine having that much trust. Just this trust, like no matter what is going on, I trust that it's right for me in this moment. I trust that it's right for all of us. I need to be able to trust the circumstances of this moment to such a degree that I can be open to the guidance that will allow me to know how it is I need to proceed. Trust would settle all problems now. Now, if you have issues with trust, like you start getting scared. I know me. You start getting nervous about something or anxious. You start trying to think ahead. You try to think for other people. You're no longer in trust. You're in your own spinning monkey mind. So, of course, it's trying to get us to get to a place where we can be in a mindset of trust. And in some of our lessons, lesson 47 said, God is the strength in which I trust. Lesson 181 says, I trust my brothers who are one with me. So trust is an essential ingredient for all of us. Not just teachers, but everyone who is trying to move higher into the place of spiritual maturity. Trust is an essential factor for that because there's so much unknown. There's so much unknown in every aspect of our life. So if we have trust, we won't be so scared. We can just have a sense of knowing that when we are in trust, and the times that we have been in trust, that there's an easier way to access the peace that's within us. That peace that is somewhere in there, allowing us to find some sense of relief from the difficulties, the judgments, the fears of our lives. So trust is the first essential ingredient that it's talking about. It says this is the foundation on which our ability to fulfill our function rests. What's our function? Our function is to represent these teachings by how we live, by our way of being. And some of the recurring themes are to have a mindset of forgiveness and to be able to see each other with Christ vision, to enter into our holy instance with an openness to receive guidance. So it says, in fact, perception is learning because cause and effect are never separated. The teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned it is not governed by the laws of the world. It is governed by a power that is in them, but not of them. It is this power that keeps all things safe. It is through this power that the teachers of God look upon a forgiving world. So again, forgiveness is this recurring theme. So when things are happening, like the Ukrainian crisis, or the sudden violent death of a friend, and you're in your upset self, as we are all in our upset self, how do we access that trust? How do we access this peace that's being promised for us? And the Course tells us that we access that through our time of prayer and meditation, that we spend some time receiving the messages that are so subtle, because the ego is so loud, it speaks so continuously to tell us what it is that has hurt us. What should we do about it? How can we survive in a difficult world? But there's this other voice, this quieter voice, this softer voice, this gentler voice that may not have any sound to it, but a sense of knowing, an inner understanding of who you really are beyond this physical self, beyond this physical realm of existence. Because ultimately, all of us are beyond this. All of us are not just this. And when we tap into that, when we understand that, and we feel that, we get some relief. We get some peace. We just have to learn how to trust that it is accessible to us, that this peace is accessible to us, that relief from our pain, our sadness, our judgments, our fears, even if it's just a moment. That's why it's called a holy instant. Sometimes it's just a moment. It's just a moment of relief, and you'd be like, let me carry this into my day. Let me just carry this moment of peace. And then we get caught up in the stuff, the stuff of life. So we keep coming back to this. Keep coming back to this practice. When this power has been experienced, it is impossible to trust one's own petty strength again. Who would attempt to fly with the tiny wings of a sparrow when the mighty power of an eagle has been given them? And who would place his faith in the shabby offerings of the ego when the gifts of God are laid before him? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? There's so many things that pester us. When you think about an eagle soars higher than any other bird, and it endures winds, it can endure different elements. And there are other birds that try to hijack the eagle. They're like, I get a ride here. This is making my life a little bit easier, right? So it is known that there are other birds that will try to attach themselves to the eagle. But the eagle is going to keep going higher and higher and higher. And what happens is there's other birds that they can't sustain that level of atmosphere, so they start pecking at the eagle to try and get it to slow down or to go down. But the eagle keeps going, and those birds have to fall away. They have to fall away because they cannot sustain it. And it's kind of like the ego, right? The ego is pecking at us. It's pestering us. It's trying to keep us from going higher and higher and higher. Stay in your pain, stay in your hardship, stay in your judgment. And so if we want to soar, if we want to rise above, we have to recognize that pestering voice that's telling us to hold on to our hate or our judgment, our upset, our unkindness, wanting to one up someone, whatever it is that the ego is doing that is not compassionate, not loving, that is the part that we want to fall away. So we rise higher so that the ego no longer has that much influence over us. That's why we call it spiritual practice, because we're here in this body, in this temptress of an ego that's continuously trying to bring us down. And so, separate and apart from that, when there is a valid reason for having your human emotions, we're not trying to deny that. None of us are saying that we're not sad about Pam. None of us are not saying that we're not going to look at that candle and miss the actual physical presence of her, even though we know that the essence of who she is here. We want the physical presence. We want her here. So we're not denying that. We're not denying that. But there's that inner knowing. It's talking about that deeper inner knowing that we all have, that we all know, that it's not just about what's happening in this world and in this life. That none of us are going to be here forever in this form. So we go through our emotions, and we grow through our emotions, and we comfort each other, and then we go to the next step. The next step is, well, who am I now? Who am I as a result of this? And we look deeply into our own hearts and to our own ability to get back to doing the work of a teacher of God or a disciple of some spiritual path. Let's let that continue to be who we are. Just like you continue to eat, you continue to take walks, you continue to live your life, you continue to function so that every aspect of your life gets stronger and is enhanced. And that's what we do when we have emotional pain as well. We continue to live our spiritual disciplines as well. And it could be probably a temptation to let that go. But once you get to a place of deeper knowing and deeper practice and deeper way of being, then you can let it go because it's who you are. It becomes a part of you. It is who you are. Development of trust. So now, these are the steps on how we develop trust. And it starts out, first we go through a period of might be called undoing. This need not be painful, but usually is experience. It's like, no kidding, really? It's like what people call the dark night of the soul. I always call it the dark night of the ego because the soul knows no darkness. So in our lives, we have these experiences where we go through difficult times, and that's the time of the undoing. But what is it undoing? It's undoing the hold of the ego on us. And so if you're going to let go of something that really wants to hold on, like the crow holding on to the eagle, then there's going to be some fussing and fighting within before the shift occurs. So sometimes we find that we have difficulties. Mary Williamson likes to say that as soon as you dedicate your life to a spiritual path, there's a wrecking ball that comes in and destroys like every aspect of your sensibilities. And you're like, what is happening? Like, what do I have to hold on to? And sometimes there's nothing to hold on to other than your trust and your inner knowing and your deeper knowing. Question? No? It seems as if things are being taken away, and it is rarely understood initially that their lack of value is merely being recognized. So, when you think about the things that you no longer value in terms of your spiritual path, for instance, like when I was working at the nursing home, I would go into the break room, for example, and people would be really mad about something. And they would usually be talking about each other. It was just like, this one said this and this one did that. And it was like gossip. And there was a time when I would be very interested, like, well, who did what? But now it's like, it just does not interest me anymore. It does not interest me to hear things that are unkind about other people. I don't need to engage in that. So it's like that has fallen away. And you might have found that we have a very beloved brother here by the name of Paul, who had an issue with road rage at one time. Can I tell you secrets? I just did. Sorry, I just spilled it. But that was like a big deal for you, right? For a long time.
It was huge.
And now, not so much.
I moved away.
Well, there you go. We call that greyhound therapy. But sometimes things that really used to upset you at one time, they just maybe not upsetting you as much anymore. Or things that you would engage in. I remember one I don't know if it wasn't you, Lisa, somebody else was talking one time about how they picked up the phone when it was ringing and they saw that it was someone that they always argued with. And they were like, oh. And they didn't want to talk to that person. But then they said, oh yeah, wait a minute. I'm going to not assume that this is going to be an argument. And I'm going to not engage if it is an argument. And I remember she said she took the call and she just decided to be loving and compassionate and understanding. And it was expressing that. And an argument did not occur. And she found that as long as she thought in terms of, oh no, there's going to be an argument, she had bad feelings toward this person. But then when she started thinking in terms of, I no longer need to engage in this argument. I don't need to convince this person that I'm right, or that I think I'm right. I don't need to engage in arguments that end in useless battle of wits. And
that was Rev's staff.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And her brother.
Oh, you're right. You're right. And that turned around. So you might find on the spiritual path that there's times when, look, we can show up when we're engaged in things that feed our spirit. So, like right now, we're feeding each other's spirit. If we're going to do a ritual, or we're going to have a service of some sort, we're going to be like the service we do on the beach once a month, and we're praying together, and we're lighting candles, and we're ringing the bell, and we're in this environment that's raising our spirits, and we're feeling very spiritually connected, and we're singing, and we're praying, and we're saying all the right things. And then, maybe later in the day or later in the week, someone asks for our help, or we find an opportunity to be of service to someone, but we're just not in the mood, or somebody triggers our own personal deep-seated stuff, and next thing you know, we're back in the battle. Well, then we still have work to do, because it's not just about what we're doing when we're in that altered state. It's about whether or not we can truly alter our traits. Can we truly get to a point where we are not just compassion for show, but we're truly deeply compassionate? Even with people that in the past we may not have liked. And maybe we don't even feel a deep love or a deep compassion for someone, but we have a sense of wanting to be kind, wanting to be loving, wanting to extend a way of being that in the past maybe was more difficult for us. That's when that other way of being starts to fall away. That part where we hurt others with unkind words or absence of words if we refuse to speak. There's different things that we can do that speak of unkindness and can be hurtful. And if we still find that interesting, if we still find that titillating in some way, then we have not yet lost our interest in those things. And so we raise our awareness. We become hyper vigilant of our own way of being, not watching everybody else, not finding the wrongdoings of others so precious that we can hold on to them and judge them, but we become aware of our own self. Where am I being unkind? Where have I forgotten to extend beyond, just do a little stretch, a little yoga stretch, a little warrior pose, so that I can move beyond the interests of my ego, that part of me that was not being very kind or compassionate. Question?
Deborah Ryder says, thank you so much for sharing your amazing knowledge.
Deborah, I love you. I'm so glad you're here. Is she in town? Are you in town? Let's see if she's in town. So, next. The teacher of God must go through a period of sorting out. This is always somewhat difficult because having learned that the changes in life are always helpful, he must now decide all things on the basis of whether they increase the helpfulness or hamper it. Because you know what? Sometimes you get to where you just start thinking you know what to do. You think you know. And in the Course in Miracles, from the very beginning, one of the principles says, ask for help. Ask for direction. That's why that prayer, I love that prayer that says, tell me where to go, tell me what to do, tell me what to say and to whom. Because it gets back into being your ego if you're the one who thinks you've got all the answers. I'm being nice, I'm being kind, I'm being non-judgmental, and I've sort of risen above all that stuff. And now I'm going to run the show. But you know what? It's never about us running the show. It's about us opening to guidance so that we can go to the right place at the right time, say the right things.
But that's still us running the show.
That's still us being in partnership of a higher holy self. You're in partnership with your higher holy self because you have the option of listening to your ego or listening to the spirit. So you still have to put one foot in front of the other and live your life. But here's one of the stories from the cameos from the Circle of Atonement version, where they have the cameos, and there's the stories of Helen being resistant. You know, there's a talk with her where she was saying like that it just used to bother her so much because she was really resistant to this material. She didn't want to do it, and she felt like there was something wrong with her. But at the same time, she had this deep inner knowing that she had to do it. She said, it annoyed me, but I really felt like I had to do it. Thank God she did it. Thank Helen, thank God, thank Jesus, thank Bill Thetford, you know, Ken Wapnick, all the people who made this happen, Judy Scutch. So she was still living her life. She was still having her ups and her downs, her resistance, but she became open and receptive to this material. So that's the kind of movement forward we're talking about, to be able to receive the guidance and to create a day, even if it's just one day. If it's one day at a time, you wake up, you got 24 hours ahead of you, and you make the commitment to do what you feel led to do. So yeah, you're still living your life, but you're living it in harmony with guidance.
Stephanie Costin says, perfect lesson on target.
Stephanie, I'm glad you're here too. Yay. Stephanie is an amazing artist. If anybody has been on my Facebook page, long before people started putting sunflowers on their Facebook pages in Standing United with the Ukrainian people, she had done a beautiful painting of sunflowers. And I had a screenshot of it, and I put it on my page the other day. So go to my Facebook page and look at that beautiful picture. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're with us. Did you want to say something else, Ben, about that?
I just think it's always us. Even if you're saying I'm going to give over myself to God and I'm going to let God take over, you still have to make that decision.
Right. That's true.
So it's really always us, and you have to also believe that you're making the decision that there's a God to give up your control to as well. So it's still always us. I mean, I still think it's still always me. I think it can never not be me.
It was an interesting choice of words. You said give up control, and I'm not sure that that's what we're doing. We're not giving up control.
Okay.
We are opening ourselves to guidance. And then we have a choice.
Right,
so,
but we're still opening ourselves.
Yes,
we're still the ones that are sort of...
That's where free will comes in.
Yeah.
That's where free will comes in. Because if you're having a bad day, right? You're having a bad day. You've been doing the Course in Miracles for many years now, right? You're having a bad day. You're at work. And you have that lady that annoys you at work. See, I know things. So about you guys. I try not to spill too many secrets. So this person annoys you, and maybe 2 years ago you might have engaged in some kind of battle of wits with her.
Oh, it's horrible.
Right? But now you don't.
No.
Now you don't. Because something in you has changed. And it's because it no longer interests you. She might still annoy you. You might still be annoyed, but maybe not as much. And you might still be tempted to say something, but you don't. Because something in you has changed. And so let's say you get to a day where, you know, she's just reached your last nerve. And you're like, ooh, those old words, I'm just chomping at the bit to say something. And you just take that moment, to ask, can I see this differently? And maybe you don't use those words, but something in you knows that you want to see it differently, so you don't go back to the old way of being.
Yeah,
you don't say those old words.
Yes, that's true.
I don't live in that house anymore.
I don't live in that house anymore. I don't live in the house of condemnation and judgment and the need to engage in these battles. So you see?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just think it's just an interesting. It's like because it's still it's us yet it's not. It's like a combo. It's like there's this combination of going with the flow, so to speak, for lack of a better way of putting it. But also, in sobriety they call it, faith without works is meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning one still has to take the steps to implement whatever they think God may want for them.
And that's why we're calling this a dedication. We're dedicating ourselves to this practice, to open ourselves to the guidance of what might make a change within us. So we're not so dependent on the ego's way and more open to Spirit's way. And since Deborah's on with us, remember when Deborah was having issues with her neighbor? Deborah, do you remember this? You had a neighbor who was having an issue with you, I guess it was. And we all decided we were going to pray 1 week of Buddhist prayers, right? May she be happy. May she be peaceful. May she do well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I do well. Remember that? And we decided we were all going to do it with Deborah for a week. And something shifted. Something shifted. Now, that's the glorious, miraculous aspect of being very focused on making a change within, because sometimes it changes without. But what if she didn't? What if the neighbor didn't change? What if the neighbor was still as grumpy, but you changed? That's really what ultimately matters, because no matter how much we think we can change the world, there's a really good chance that we can only change ourselves.
Well, that's exactly what the Course in Miracles says.
Right, because there's some new thoughts that say that when we change, they change. And I keep reminding people that this is not a new thought teaching. This is a mystic's teaching, and it's about us. It's about us changing. And it's about how we see things differently. So instead of being upset with the neighbor, now it's like it's just what is happening in this moment, and I'm not going to engage in it. Because now it's not of interest to you anymore. It's not as upsetting to you anymore. That's good stuff, right? It's good stuff if you can get to that. I'm still working on it. How are we doing for time?
43.
All right, we're not going to get through all of question number 4 today. We're going to just go with development of trust, and then we'll pick it up next week with some others. The third stage through which the teacher of God must go was called a period of relinquishment. Did I just say that already? In this is interpreted as giving up the desirable. It will engender enormous conflict. Ooh. Few teachers of God escape this distress. There is, however, no point in sorting out the valuable from the valueless unless the next obvious step is taken. Therefore, the period of overlap is apt to be one in which the teacher of God feels called upon to sacrifice his own best interests on behalf of truth. He has not realized yet how wholly impossible such a demand would be. Why? Because we're really not giving up anything. When you're giving up the ego attachments, you're not giving up anything. You're gaining something. You're gaining a closer connection to Spirit. You're gaining the ability to trust more deeply. You're gaining a release of your fears and your judgments. We think it's sacrifice. We all go back a long way. So then there was one time when Belinda was saying that she was worried that her friends would find her boring if she got too spiritual. Remember that conversation? And then, a couple months went by and she was saying, oh no, it's the other way around. Like, I'm now getting bored with the types of things that they want to engage in. So we start noticing the shift. We start noticing the changes within ourselves, the change in the priorities we have, the change in the things we desire, the way of life that we want maybe at an earlier time of life versus now. We start noticing, go outside looking at ourselves and noticing that we're starting to change. We're starting to shift. We're not making any sacrifices. Nothing is asked of us. We're not learning a new thing. We're working on unlearning. Unlearning the things that are not useful to our spirit. We're unlearning the ways of the ego. We're healing the ways of the subconscious influences. We're working on healing our emotional stuff, our traumas, our fears, our pains. We're working on many levels because we're multifaceted. We have to heal emotionally so that we have the strength to move forward spiritually. Comment? No?
46.
Oh no, I was wondering if there was another comment. No more comment. Okay. Now comes a period of settling down. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in reasonable peace. Now he consolidates his learning. Now he begins to see the transfer of what he has learned. Its potential is literally staggering. And the teacher of God is now at the point in his progress at which he sees his whole way out. Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple it is. How easy. The teacher of God needs this period of respite. He has not yet come as far as he thinks he needs to, yet when he is ready to go on, he will go with mighty companions. I have achieved a family of mighty companions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my mighty companions. It's the only reason I did this work, so I could meet you all and be on this path with you, this sacred journey with you. Because that's what we find. We find compatible energies, people who are wanting and needing and feeling the same desire for a spiritual way of being. And finally, there is a period of achievement. It is here that learning is consolidated. Now, what was seen as merely shadows before becomes solid gains to be counted on in all emergencies, and as well as in tranquil times. And that's what we have to remember, that everything as it's moving through us, whether it's a high, happy thing or a low, sad thing, that it is all for us to see as opportunities and blessings. It's not like we compartmentalize our life experiences. We can be a blessing and be blessed regardless of the circumstances, regardless of how we would describe those circumstances as either good or bad, using our languaging. The tranquility is the result. So it said, let me go back and say that again. Now, what was seen as merely shadows before becomes solid gains to be counted on in all emergencies as well as tranquil times. So the depth of your spiritual conviction shows up in the emergencies of life as well as in tranquil times and as well as in joyful times. That you're starting to see it all as one aspect of your earth experience, and you're showing up for it as your higher holy self, as you achieve that higher holy selfness. Even if it's just for a moment, even if it's just for a day. I'm not saying we're going to be walking on water tomorrow. I'm saying we're doing our vigilance and our due diligence, and we're watching, and we're making a commitment on a daily basis. Maybe it has to be an hourly basis. It really depends on where we are at any one given time. But what it's saying is when we get to this stage, that place will be easier to maintain, that place of spiritual conviction. You know, there's some places in the world where people just live their spiritual life 24/7. It's not like, oh, I think I'll be nice today. I think I'll be compassionate today. And that's, we want to get to that place where it's just who we are all the time. We don't have to wear robes. We don't have to wear collars. We don't have to wear anything that shows that we're on a spiritual path. It's just who we are as we are. As my deans would say, you may be the only Bible anyone ever reads. Who you are as you live your life. That doesn't mean you don't get tripped up. That doesn't mean you don't do things that you wish you could have done better, because we're just doing this on a daily basis. And we're continuously working toward being our better self. To do better, be better. Rise higher, pray harder. And it's saying if we work hard enough and we do this long enough, that we will get to that stage of real peace. For here is heaven's state fully reflected, that you are reflecting heaven everywhere you go and whatever you do. From here, the way to heaven is open and easy. In fact, it is here. Who would go anywhere if peace of mind is already complete? And who would seek to change tranquility for something else? What could be more desirable than this? So that is our wish, that we find a place of tranquility, regardless of what else is going on. So let's all take a nice deep breath. Hand on your heart. Let's pray for one another. Let's pray for this tranquility to be the aspect of our being that we experience on a daily basis. Every day. Every day. And as we pray for that, I pray for the next song to be available to us. I don't know what happened here. I don't know what happened. Oh, let's see. So, I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I wanted to say something about the final song. So we're going to have a final song, then we're going to have a final prayer. This song, I was going through my correspondence with Pam, and she was always sending me different songs to try out. And this is one song that she had sent me a while ago that I had put in my folder. I have a folder of songs that I review to share with you. So this song is in Pam's honor. So we love her, we miss her, and we honor her.
Your spirit is a gentleman, standing at my hidden doors within, waiting for me to let you in, so you can set me free. Your spirit